Imagine picking up, like, a history book, right?
Okay, sure.
You crack it open, and the first 11 chapters cover literally the creation of the universe.
Right, the entire cosmos.
Yeah, the cosmos, a devastating global flood, and, thousands of years of the rise and fall of early human civilization.
Oh, yeah. Huge scope.
Massive. But then you turn the page to chapter 12, and the next 39 chapters just entirely ignore the rest of the globe.
We really do.
They focus entirely on, well, the family drama of one guy living in a tent.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, why on earth would an author structure a book like that? Welcome to the book of Genesis.
It is, it's an incredibly jarring shift when you step back and look at it structurally.
Terribly.
And that asymmetry, I mean, it trips up almost everyone who sits down to seriously study this text for the first time.
Which is exactly who we are talking to today. We know you're out there.
Yeah, we see you.
You're staring down this densely packed infographic on Genesis, highlighters in hand, trying to study.
So many dates, so many names.
Oh, it's intense. You're looking at these timelines, tracing family lineages across ancient maps, and trying to, keep all these epoch-defining dates straight in your head.
It's a lot.
It can feel less like reading a story and more like trying to memorize the engineering schematics for an entire universe.
That's a great way to put it.
Right. So consider us your study partners for this deep dive. Okay, let's unpack this. We're going to take this infographic, pull these names and dates off the page, and figure out the actual mechanics of what this book is doing.
Because Genesis literally translates to origins or beginnings.
Right, beginnings.
That's the foundational premise here. The text is setting out to explain the origin of the cosmos, the origin of humanity, the entry of corruption or sin into the world, the reality of divine judgment, and then the kickoff of this massive redemption plan.
Which is a huge undertaking.
It is. And to understand how it does that, we really need to locate it in history. The traditional attribution for the authorship of this text points to Moses.
Okay, Moses.
Yeah, meaning this was compiled and written down somewhere around the 15th century BC.
Wait, time out.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the timeline on this infographic right now. It has the creation pinned around 4004 BC.
Right.
If Moses is writing this in 1500 BC, how is he writing about events that happened 2.5 millennia before he was even born?
That's the big question.
I mean, we're talking about a time gap equivalent to us trying to write an accurate, detailed history of ancient Greece without the internet.
It sounds impossible.
Yeah. Is this like oral tradition? Is it divine dictation? How did this data even survive to get written down?
That is exactly the perfect question to ask when you're studying ancient texts. You really have to remember that in the ancient Near East, oral tradition wasn't just like a game of telephone.
Right, it wasn't just passing rumors around.
No, not at all. It was a highly structured, fiercely protected method of preserving communal history.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. These patriarchal narratives, the stories of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they were the foundational identity markers for their descendants.
So they took it very seriously.
Incredibly seriously. They were meticulously passed down through generations. And then you add to that the traditional theological understanding of divine inspiration guiding the author.
Okay, I'm tracking.
And so you have Moses in the 15th century BC serving as this great synthesizer.
Pulling it all together.
Exactly. He's looking backward, taking these deeply preserved oral histories, early written records, and divine revelation, and structuring them into the coherent narrative we have today.
Okay, so Moses is organizing this massive, sprawling history. But that brings me back to my first question. Because the way he organizes it is just wild.
Structurally, yeah, it's very unusual.
Let's look at the pacing laid out on the infographic. The 50 chapters are split into 2 major eras, and the imbalance is staggering.
There really is.
Chapters 1 through 11 cover massive cosmic-level events. You have creation around 4004 BC, then the fall of humanity, then a global flood around 2500 BC, wiping almost everything out.
Almost everything, yeah.
And finally, the Tower of Babel. That is thousands of years of human history dealing with the entire globe, crammed into just 11 chapters.
It's extremely compressed.
It's like hitting fast forward on a documentary about the universe.
It is a remarkably swift, almost breathless summary of human origins in ancient antiquity.
Right.
The author spends barely any time dwelling on the mechanics of how the physical world was made, which, frustrates modern readers.
Oh, absolutely, because we want a science textbook.
Exactly. But the author isn't interested in the physics. He's interested in the theology.
Okay, but then, right after Babel, The infographic shows this massive pivot. Chapters 12 through 50 drastically shift gears.
The big zoom in.
Yes. We go from covering thousands of years of global cosmic history to focusing entirely on a single family lineage.
Right.
It starts with a man named Abraham being called by God in 2100 BC.
Then it moves to his son Jacob around 2000 BC.
Right. And it ends with his great-grandson Joseph coming to power in Egypt around 1700 BC.
That's the scope of the rest of the book.
Wait, so the first 11 chapters cover thousands of years and the entire globe. But the next 39 chapters slow down to cover just 4 generations of one family over about 400 years.
That's exactly what happens.
It's like a movie zooming in from a wide shot of the spinning galaxy, pushing past the clouds, past the empires, right down to a tight close-up of one specific family's dinner table. Why the sudden shift?
Well, what's fascinating here is that this dramatic structural imbalance isn't a flaw in the writing.
It's not.
No, it is precisely the point. It's a deliberate focusing of the theological lens.
Okay.
You have to look at the function of those first 11 chapters. They exist to establish the universal problem.
Which is what, exactly?
They show us a pristine creation that is systematically dismantled by humanity's choices. You see the fall in the garden, which introduces death.
Right.
Then you see the violence of Cain and Abel, which escalates until it necessitates the flood.
And then they just mess it up again after the flood.
Exactly. Humanity starts over, and immediately we get the arrogance of Babel, where humans trying to build a tower to the heavens to make a name for themselves.
It's a repetitive, escalating cycle of human failure.
Yes.
So the fast-forward section is basically setting the stakes. It's demonstrating that humanity, left to its own devices, is universally broken and completely incapable of fixing itself.
Precisely. The author is proving that human corruption isn't a localized issue, it's a global pandemic.
Wow. Okay.
But once that universal problem is established, the narrative doesn't just leave the reader in despair.
Thank goodness.
Right. It pivots to introduce the specific mechanism of God's grace. How is God going to rescue this universally broken world?
Not by starting over again with another flood, apparently.
No. He decides to execute a localized, deeply personal rescue plan through one chosen family.
Ah, okay.
The sudden slowdown in the pacing reflects the meticulous generational care God is taking to build a relationship with Abraham and his descendants.
That makes so much sense.
The focus zooms in because the solution to the world's massive cosmic problem is going to be carried on the shoulders of this very specific, incredibly flawed family.
Okay, so if the entire fate of the universe rests on this one flawed family, how did they actually survive in an ancient world full of warring empires?
It wasn't easy.
I mean, looking at the genealogical and geographical section of the infographic, they didn't just stay put in a protective bubble.
No, they definitely didn't.
The infographic lays out a literal roadmap of their movements.
And, you know, the genealogies and the geography are usually the parts where a student studying this text will feel their eyes start to glaze over.
Oh, 100%. It is so easy to skip the lists of names in the maps.
I've done it myself.
Right. I'm guilty of that, too.
Yeah.
You hit a chapter of so-and-so begot so-and-so, and you just want to skim to the next exciting story.
Exactly.
But looking at the visual breakdown here, the family tree is functioning kind of like a spotlight.
How so?
Well, it starts wide with Adam and Eve, traces down through their son Seth, and leads us to Noah.
Okay, tracking.
Noah survives the flood with his 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. But the infographic immediately narrows the focus again. It drops Ham and Japheth and specifically follows the line of Shem.
And this introduces a critical theological concept that the infographic highlights later down the page. Election.
Election, okay.
Yeah. When modern people hear election, we automatically think of voting or political campaigns.
Yeah, ballot boxes.
Right. But in this ancient context, election means God actively choosing a specific person or lineage for a specific purpose.
Okay, that's different.
And what's crucial for the student to understand is that election in Genesis is not about God picking favorites just to pamper them.
It's not about giving them the VIP treatment.
Not at all. Election is about God assigning a massive, difficult responsibility. The camera ignores the other branches of the family tree to follow the specific bloodline carrying the burden of this redemptive promise.
That makes the genealogy feel less like a phone book and more like a relay race.
That's a brilliant way to look at it.
Yeah. The baton gets passed from Shem down to Abraham. From Abraham, the promise goes to Isaac. From Isaac, it goes to Jacob.
And Jacob gets his name changed to Israel.
Right. So you are watching the literal formation of the nation of Israel. But I'm looking at the maps, tracing this relay race, and they are moving from which is way out east in modern-day Iraq, all the way down to Egypt.
It's a huge journey.
That is a massive physical distance to cover on foot or by camel in the ancient Near East.
Right.
Why is God constantly making this family move instead of just blessing them where they already are?
Because the geography is the crucible for their faith.
Ooh, the crucible. I like that.
Every major transition in this family's spiritual journey is deliberately paired with a physical relocation. Think about Abraham and Ur.
Okay.
In 2100 BC, Ur was a booming metropolis. It was a center of civilization, of comfort, of established pagan worship. Abraham has wealth and security there.
He was comfortable.
Extremely comfortable. But God's call forces Abraham to physically uproot his life and move to Canaan, a land he has never seen, populated by hostile nations.
So God is basically removing his safety net.
Exactly. The geography is the physical manifestation of his faith. He has to rely entirely on the invisible promise of God because he has left his tangible security behind.
Wow.
And this pattern continues. Later, a severe famine forces the family out of Canaan and down into Egypt, which sets the stage for the next 400 years of their history.
Right, the slavery in Egypt.
Yeah. The physical movement of these key figures perfectly mirrors their spiritual journeys. They are learning, step by geographic step, what it means to rely on a promise when everything around them is unfamiliar or dangerous.
And what stands out to me looking at these dates, Abraham in 2100 BC, Jacob in 2000 BC, Joseph in 1700 BC, is that this isn't happening in some ethereal fairy tale realm.
No, it's very grounded.
They are crossing real historical borders. They are interacting with the pharaohs of Egypt. They are dealing with very real, very ugly family dynamics.
Oh, the family dynamics are incredibly messy.
I mean, look at Joseph. He doesn't go to Egypt on a diplomatic mission. He is sold into human trafficking by his own jealous brothers.
It's horrifying.
It is the absolute definition of family dysfunction.
And that firmly grounds the theology in the messy, often brutal reality of human history. The patriarchs lie, they cheat, they play favorites, they betray each other.
Yeah, they're not perfect heroes.
Not at all. The Bible doesn't sanitize their behavior. And that gritty realism provides the perfect framework to understand the heavy theological concepts your study guide lays out in the final section.
Okay, let's dig into that, because this is where the infographic moves from the who, what, and where, and tackles the why.
The theology.
So what does this all mean? The infographic lists 5 core theological pillars: creationism, sin, grace, covenant, and election.
It's a dense list.
I'll be honest, reading that list sounds like a syllabus for a graduate-level seminary class.
It really does.
How is a student supposed to internalize these massive concepts without just memorizing textbook definitions?
Well, you have to look at how these concepts function as gears turning the narrative. We've touched on creationism, sin, and election. But the most critical mechanism in this entire book, the engine that actually drives the redemption plan, is covenant.
Okay, break that down for me.
Yeah.
Because today, a covenant just sounds like a promise or a contract.
Like a business deal.
Yeah, like a mortgage agreement or something.
In the ancient Near East, a covenant was infinitely heavier than a modern contract.
Really?
Oh, yeah. It was a legally binding life or death treaty, usually made between a powerful king, a suzerain, and a lesser king or vassal.
Okay, suzerain and vassal.
It involved solemn rituals, often involving the cutting of animals, to signify what would happen to the person who broke the treaty.
Yikes. So it was bloody and serious.
Very serious. So when the infographic highlights covenant, it is pointing to the staggering moment when the creator of the universe stoops down and uses the legal framework of 2000 BC to bind himself to a human being.
That is mind-blowing.
God makes an absolute, unbreakable guarantee to Abraham. He says, I will make you a great nation, I will give you this land, and through you, the entire world will be blessed.
Wait, so God is putting himself on the hook. He is legally binding himself to this flawed family.
Yes, exactly. And that is the only way to understand the tension between sin and grace that dominates Genesis.
How do you mean?
Think about the cycle we talked about earlier. Humanity constantly fails. Abraham lies about his wife to save his own skin.
Oh, right. He does that twice, doesn't he?
He does. And Jacob steals his brother's birthright. Joseph's brothers attempt murder.
The family is a disaster.
The human inclination towards sin threatens to derail the rescue plan in every single generation.
If it were a normal contract, God would have had every right to terminate it for breach of agreement by, like, chapter 20.
Exactly. But that bleak reality of human sin is constantly met by God's grace. And the mechanism delivering that grace is the covenant.
Because God can't break his promise.
Right. God does not abandon the project. because he swore an oath. Grace swoops in to clean up the catastrophic messes this family creates, preserving the bloodline and the promise despite their worst efforts.
That completely reframes the whole book for me. And the infographic takes it a step further. It explicitly connects these ancient, heavy concepts to 3 modern applications for you, the student studying this today.
Makes it very personal.
It does. It claims that mastering this material gives you, number 1, the knowledge that life has an origin, which helps you build a correct worldview.
Right.
Number 2, the knowledge that life has a purpose, meaning you can live out a mission in God's plan. And number 3, the knowledge that life has hope, because you can rely on God's eternal promises.
It is making a very bold claim about the power of the text.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's essentially saying to the student, hey, this isn't just an ancient history assignment. This is an instruction manual for how to view reality.
Yes.
If you are feeling untethered in the modern world, Genesis tells you that your life isn't a cosmic accident. You have a specific origin. If you're feeling aimless, it tells you that history is actually moving toward a specific redemptive goal, giving you a purpose.
That's powerful.
And most importantly, if you look at the news and feel despair, it tells you that life has hope.
And that third application, knowing life has hope, is the ultimate payoff of studying the tension between human sin and divine grace.
I love that.
When a student reads Genesis and sees that God's covenant survived the global destruction of the flood, survived the toxic dysfunction of Abraham's family, and survived Joseph being betrayed and rotting in an Egyptian prison, well, they learn something profound about resilience. If God can extract salvation out of the absolute chaos of the Genesis narratives, then the student can have enduring hope in their own life, regardless of how messy their circumstances are.
Wow.
You aren't just memorizing ancient data, you are learning the underlying grammar of faith.
The grammar of faith. I love that framing.
Yeah.
So to you, the listener, putting in the long hours studying this densely packed material, take a step back and look at what you've actually uncovered.
It's a lot.
You aren't just tracing lines on a map or memorizing the names of long-dead patriarchs. You are seeing how 50 chapters of cosmic origins, catastrophic floods, chaotic family drama, and unbreakable ancient treaties all weave together into one unified blueprint of redemption.
It is a brilliant synthesis. But as we finish this analysis, this raises an important question.
Oh.
There is one final lingering tension in the text, something I think every student needs to grapple with before they move on to the next book.
I always appreciate a good unresolved tension.
Well,
what is it?
Think about the massive structural asymmetry we started with. The book of Genesis opens with the most majestic, unimaginable display of power possible.
The cosmic creation of the entire universe.
Right. It is God speaking stars into existence. It is infinite scale and undeniable glory.
The ultimate sweeping wide shot.
But look at where the infographic tells us the book ends. Fast forward to 1700 BC. By the end of chapter 50, the narrative has narrowed down to just one specific family.
Joseph and his brothers.
Yes. Joseph, his aging father Jacob, and his brothers. And they aren't conquering the world. They aren't living in palaces in the promised land.
They're Egypt.
They are vulnerable, displaced refugees. They are foreigners who have been forced to take shelter in the pagan empire of Egypt just to survive a brutal regional famine.
That is an unbelievable contrast. The book starts with God creating the cosmos, and it ends with an old man and his sons begging for grain in a foreign empire.
The ultimate aha moment here is recognizing the paradox of how divine power operates. We are conditioned to expect God's plans to always look big, victorious, and undeniable.
Like conquering armies or towering monuments.
Exactly. But Genesis ends quietly. It ends with a fragile, messy family living in exile, possessing absolutely nothing but a promise that God will one day bring them home.
Wow.
What does that dramatic reduction in scale reveal to us? It tells us that divine power in Genesis doesn't always look like cosmic fireworks. Most of the time, it looks like survival. It is the stubborn resilience of a promise operating in the quiet, vulnerable, and messy realities of human history.
That is the perfect thought to end on. God's biggest promises often take root in our most vulnerable moments. So to our dedicated student out there, as you close your notebook on Genesis and look ahead to the rest of the story, remember that you aren't just trying to pass a test.
You're learning the story of us.
Exactly. You are learning to trace the invisible threads of grace through the muddy waters of human history. Keep studying, keep asking the hard questions, and trust that the blueprint holds together.